Hello everyone, and welcome to week 7 of Zero to Squat. We're getting into the home stretch here now, not too many more weeks to go. And at this point, I'd say it's probably pretty safe that anyone who's been following along through any amount of these videos knows how to warm themselves up at this point and has probably picked a couple of favorite exercises in the earlier weeks. And so I'd encourage you to use those as kind of a warm-up for what we're going to be focusing on today. If you don't have some favorites or you still want to just follow along, then I'll go through the bridge and the hip hinging motion that we use as our ready position before we get into the progression on the squat. So the first thing that we're going to try and do is just a little bit of a warm up like we did last week with the bridge in this regular non-staggered position with our knees about hip width apart, tailbone up, ribs down. Get that nice even pressure across the front of the abdomen here, and then we're going to just drive up through the heels, lifting the hips up towards the ceiling, just like so. Nice little warm up for the actual squat motion that we want to spend most of our energy on this week. The second motion that we can consider is something that we're already familiar with, but now we're just doing it as a little warm up in and of itself, trying to again save our energy for the squatting motion itself. So we're going to have the feet just a little narrower than the hips, hands resting on the front of the thighs, start tall, and then we're just going to slide the hands down until we get to the front of our knees by sticking our hips back and letting our chest kind of fall over top of our hands so that we can keep that weight evenly in our feet. We shouldn't feel like we're falling off the heels here or trying to rock over in any way. So I'm going to turn sideways here so you can see it from this angle, from the thighs down to the knees. A lot of hip movement, not a lot of knee movement, but they do come forward just a little bit to meet that angle there. So none of the sliding, nothing else, just that smooth up and down motion to get us prepared for what's coming next. All right, the third thing, the most important thing we're going to be working on this week is just a progression on the chair squat that we started with in week 6. And so I've got the bolster here with me again. You don't have to use this. It's just about finding the right height for your current skill level. Don't try to compete with anybody else. Everybody's going to go through this at their own speed, and being honest about where you actually feel safe and where you feel confident is very important in these early stages, because you don't want to try and do something too deep too soon and get either discouraged, frustrated, or uncomfortable in a way that won't let you continue. So try to dial that in at home. So what we're going to be doing as compared to the last week's one is we're going to try to leave the hands out of this as much as possible. We don't want to push off the arms. We'd prefer not to push off the legs, although you can still use them as a guide if you're trying to make sure that you get lots of hip movement. And so in this position now, very similar to last week, hip width apart, toes pointed out slightly, starting from a nice tall position. But now instead of going into a full sit, what we're going to do is we're just going to touch, just going to graze up against the cushion, and then we're going to try and change directions. You're going to notice that that change in direction from down to up is the hardest part, and that it does require a little bit more of this than what we'd been doing last week, where you actually got to sit all the way down. And if at any point you feel uncomfortable or feel like this isn't going as well as you thought, first of all, double check your technique. And then second of all, feel free to commit your weight to the chair if you need to. That's why it's there. So if we come down and we don't like how the transition feels, we can stop and we can sit. It's a good safety for this. But in general, if you've been practicing this long, you should be able to feel most of the muscles that you're looking for to get this to work at least a few times. So that's the third thing. That's the progression. The sets and the repetitions, since they're a warm-up, it's a little bit more flexible for the first 2 exercises. For the third one, there's going to be quite a range on this, because now you're really doing something difficult compared to where we started. And so if you find that you have to do fairly low repetitions, that's not a problem. As long as they're good repetitions, you can always expand that and grow that as you get more practiced and more accomplished. So that's the end of week 7. And if there are any questions or comments, feel free to leave them below. And if otherwise, call the office and get in touch with us directly. We're more than happy to answer any questions if you have them. And thank you very much for watching.